14-year-old Emma was walking through the park, thinking about how she could help her family. Their house was always quiet, but they were constantly short on money. Emma dreamed of becoming someone important, someone who could help her parents and change their lives. She stopped at a bench to take a break. At that moment, her eyes caught a shiny object that drew her attention. It was an expensive watch, clearly lost by someone important. Emma was surprised at how it sparkled against the backdrop of autumn leaves. Without hesitation, she picked it up and examined it. The watch was far too luxurious for her, and she was sure it belonged to someone very wealthy. After thinking for a couple of seconds, she made a decision: return it to its owner. There was no one around who could help her find them, but Emma knew one thing: she couldn't keep the watch for herself. Emma sat on the bench in the park, clutching the lost watch. Her heart was still beating fast, and she couldn't quite understand what was happening. What on earth had she done? She had found a watch that was clearly very valuable and hadn't even considered keeping it. She wasn't from a rich family, but even so, she knew that what wasn't hers shouldn't be taken. Sitting on the bench, she looked closely at the watch. Her fingers slid over the cold metal, and she wondered who it might belong to. It was so beautiful, so delicate, but no matter how much she wanted it, she couldn't keep it. That would be wrong. She would never do such a thing. Her thoughts were interrupted when a man appeared from around the corner. That was the moment her life changed. The man walked toward the bench, but Emma didn't recognize him right away. He was wearing dark sunglasses and a long coat, and his face looked strangely familiar. For a moment, she thought he might be someone she had seen in movies. Then it hit her. It was Keanu Reeves. She blushed and her heart skipped a beat. Emma didn't know how to act in such a situation. She was just a 14-year-old girl who had accidentally come face to face with a world-famous actor. What was she supposed to do? What could she say? She jumped to her feet, trying to appear confident, even though she was shaking inside. "Excuse me, did you lose this watch?" she asked, hardly believing her own words. Her voice trembled a little, and she immediately felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her, but she tried to stay calm. Keanu Reeves looked at her, and his eyes seemed to soften. "Yes, it's mine," he said with a warm smile. "I lost it this morning. You found it, right?" Emma still couldn't believe her eyes. It was the real Keanu Reeves, and she was sitting next to him on a bench, talking to him like he was just a regular person. She was nervous, but at the same time, she felt like she was doing the right thing. "Yeah, I found it in the park," she said, a bit nervously. "I just thought it must belong to someone important." Keanu kept looking at her with a curious expression, as if he couldn't quite believe what was happening. "You know," he said, tilting his head slightly, "not many people your age would do what you did. You could have kept it. It's worth a lot. But you chose to return it." Emma felt her throat go dry as she looked at his face. His gaze was sincere, and she felt something stir inside her. Those weren't just words of thanks. It was something more. It felt like Keanu truly appreciated her honesty, and for the first time, Emma felt like someone truly understood her. "I don't need anything that doesn't belong to me," she replied quietly. "That's just what I believe in." Her words sounded childishly serious, but she wasn't trying to sound grown up. She meant every word. Keanu smiled. He was clearly moved by what she had done. He hadn't expected someone, especially someone so young, to act so deliberately. And then, as if deciding Emma deserved more, he said, "You know, you can do more than you think. Can I offer you something?" Emma froze. This was a moment she hadn't expected. Of course, she couldn't hope for anything more than a thank you, but he was offering her something different, something more. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to hide her surprise. Keanu paused for a moment, then said, "You surprised me. Maybe you're ready to try changing your life, to do something meaningful. I can help you if you're willing." Emma felt her chest tighten with excitement. Help from Keanu Reeves himself? What could he offer her? She was only 14, and her world was limited to school problems and the need to support her family. How could she get help from someone who, in her eyes, lived in a completely different world? How is that possible? She asked, still unsure what he meant. Keanu went on to talk about his projects, how he helps young people with dreams like hers. He explained that his goal was to support those who wanted to change their lives, no matter how hard things might seem. Emma listened, unable to believe this was happening to her. His words were warm and genuine, and she felt like this was the chance she'd never even dared to dream of. You can learn, grow, and even help others, just like you helped me, Keanu said. You can be part of something bigger than just surviving. All you need is to believe in yourself and keep moving forward. Emma felt something new begin to grow inside her. It was a moment when her inner world lit up in a different way. The doubt was gone. This was a chance she couldn't miss. She didn't know how everything would unfold, but she knew one thing. Her world was about to change. But I'm only 14, she said, looking into his eyes. How can I change anything at my age? Keanu looked at her with a confidence she hadn't expected. He was much older, and it seemed like he had the answers to all her questions. Age doesn't matter if you're ready to act. You can start small and take it step by step. I'll help you. Emma didn't know what to say. Her heart was filled not just with fear, but with an overwhelming desire to seize this chance. As Keanu spoke to her, she felt her world begin to shift. These weren't just empty words. He was truly offering her a chance to be part of something that could change her life. With every word, he convinced her that if she chose to act, she could find her own path, even at just 14 years old. You're capable of more than you know, Keanu said as their conversation came to an end. You just have to believe in yourself, Emma, and I'll be there to support you. Emma felt a fire ignite inside her. She didn't know what awaited her, but she understood one thing. There might only be one chance. I'll try, she said with a confidence she hadn't expected from herself. Emma walked home feeling strange. Everything she had just experienced felt unreal. Keanu Reeves had offered her a chance she could never have dreamed of. A chance for support, guidance, and opportunities for growth. All of it had suddenly become part of her new reality. She returned to her usual world, where every day was a struggle to survive and dreams seemed distant and unreachable. But now, after hearing Keanu's words, those dreams felt much more real. She didn't have a clear plan, no set path forward, but she had one thing, the will to act. I can't just sit and do nothing, she thought as she stepped into her home. If I've been given a chance, I have to take it. Emma didn't know exactly how to make her dreams come true. She wasn't sure she could handle what Keanu had offered, but the decision was made. She had chosen to try. It was scary, but at the same time, it was her chance. The next day, she returned to the park where she had met Keanu. But this time, her gaze was different. She wasn't just a regular girl anymore. She was someone ready to change her life. I'm ready, she told him when they met again at the same bench. She couldn't believe she had said it out loud, but her voice was steady. Keanu turned to her and nodded with a smile. He knew she was ready. You've taken the first step, Emma, but there will be many more tough decisions ahead. Weeks passed. Emma dove into the project, helping other teenagers from struggling families. She began to realize that it wasn't just about believing in herself, but also about not being afraid to ask for help when she needed it. She learned how to organize small events, how to work with kids who, like her, had faced hardships. But with each passing day, the pressure grew. She couldn't help but notice that her project attracted not only positive attention, but also criticism from those who dismissed her efforts as a waste of time. Some people laughed at her ideas, calling them unrealistic. Doubts began to weigh her down, like heavy stones in the ocean. What if I can't do it? She thought. What if this is all just a childish dream? Her parents, despite their efforts, couldn't understand why she was spending so much time on this instead of helping at home or looking for a real job. Emma couldn't bring herself to share her doubts with them. She didn't want them to see her weakness. But deep down, a growing part of her feared that maybe her dream was too ambitious. Emma went through moments of uncertainty and more often thought she wouldn't make it. One evening, as she was walking home from a volunteer meeting, she saw a familiar figure on the street. It was the same man who had mocked her ideas, the one who had said they were impossible. He was standing with a group of people talking about how young people never accomplish anything. Emma felt her blood boil with anger. "What do you mean?" she asked as she approached him, unable to hold back. "I mean, your efforts are a waste of time," the man replied, not even noticing how furious she was. "You think you can change the world, but you don't have the experience, the resources, or the real power to make a difference." Emma stood there, fists clenched, tears stinging her eyes. She was so close to giving up, and his words only made her doubts worse. She couldn't respond right away. All she wanted was to walk away, but in her mind, Keanu's words echoed again. "You can do more if you believe in yourself." Emma left without saying a word, but her mind wouldn't rest. She thought about how Keanu had told her, "You're not alone. I'll help you if you want me to." The next day, she called him. Emma could no longer sit in the shadow of her doubts. She needed help. She needed to know how to handle the fear and insecurity that were threatening to consume her. Keanu listened to her and, as always, spoke to her as an equal. "Emma, I know it's hard, but it's in moments like these that you have to keep going. You can't stop just because someone told you that you can't. You decide what you're capable of, and trust me, you're capable of more than you think." Her heart settled and she felt stronger. Emma realized she couldn't let the doubts win. "I'll keep going," she said with determination. "Even if it's hard, I'll keep going." With Keanu's support, Emma took a bold step. She organized her first charity event. It was hard and she had to overcome many obstacles, but she knew it was the right thing to do. More people showed up than she had expected, and although it was only the beginning, Emma felt her dream starting to take shape. It was her first real step toward changing her life and the lives of others. A few more weeks passed since Emma had made the big decision and started working on her project. Still unsure of her own strength, she kept pushing forward with all her energy. But each day her self-doubt grew stronger. It was hard. The project was moving slowly, and every rejection and every challenge felt like a massive setback. A constant battle raged in her mind. She thought about her parents, still struggling to find work, about her family, about the difficult days when she had sat in school, hoping her dreams would come true. Emma felt like a tight string ready to snap. She held her emotions in for as long as she could, but standing in her small home workspace, she finally let herself cry. "What if I can't do this?" she whispered, gripping the edge of the table. "What if it was all just a dream I'll never be able to make real?" Tears fell onto her hands, but she quickly wiped them away. She couldn't afford weakness. She couldn't afford to back down. She remembered how Keanu had told her she was capable of more. He believed in her, and she still wasn't sure. But now, standing there with herself, Emma felt she couldn't give up. She couldn't. She clenched her fists, lifted her head, and looked at her notes. This project mattered to her. It wasn't just for her. It was for the children who were suffering just like she had. Taking a deep breath, Emma knew it was time to act decisively. The next morning, Emma sat down at her computer and started writing letters to potential sponsors for her project. She knew she couldn't rely on luck anymore. Her future depended on how many people she could convince that her project was worth supporting. Days passed and the replies began to come in. Most were rejections, but one response stood out. It came from a large charitable organization that expressed interest in her initiative and offered to meet with her. Emma felt her heart race. She couldn't believe it. This was the moment she had been waiting for, and she knew she couldn't afford to fail. But the closer the meeting came, the more her fear grew. What if she couldn't handle it? What if her project wasn't good enough? The thoughts kept spinning in her mind, but she knew she couldn't back down now. She sat down at her desk, exhaled, and made a promise to herself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show them what I can do. When the day of the meeting arrived, Emma walked into the office of the charity organization. Her heart pounded, and anxiety twisted in her stomach. She tried to stay calm, but her nerves were obvious. She still couldn't believe that her project had actually gotten this far. When she entered the conference room, a middle-aged woman greeted her with a warm smile. "Emma, I'm glad to see you," she said, extending her hand. "I read your project. It's impressive." Emma sat down and began explaining her idea, her goals, and her journey. As the conversation went on, she felt her voice grow more confident. She talked about her desire to help other children, about how her project could become a real opportunity for many. She explained how important it was for kids like her to have a chance at a better future. The woman listened attentively, and after a short pause, she said, "This is really interesting, Emma. We see potential, but you have to understand that we need more information. We need to be sure that you can manage this project on a high level." Emma felt her heart tighten. She thought she was ready, but now she realized how challenging this road might be. Her project was still in its early stages, and she wasn't sure she could meet all the requirements. Back at home, Emma immediately got to work. She knew the real battle was just beginning. She had to gather all the necessary information, provide additional materials, and prove she was capable of making this project a success. But despite her efforts, the doubts started creeping back in. She sat in front of her computer, staring at a blank screen, realizing that every step required more effort than she had expected. Once again, the thought returned. What if I can't do it? She got up and walked to the window. The world outside was so calm and beautiful, while her life was filled with chaos and challenges. But then she remembered the words Keanu had said, "You can do more." And suddenly she understood. It wasn't just a phrase. It was the truth. Emma returned to her desk and kept working. She made a to-do list, set priorities, and moved forward. Her decision was final. She wouldn't stop until she reached her goal. A few days later, Emma received another email from the organization. Her heart pounded as she opened it. It was a positive response. She had received support for her project. Emma couldn't believe her eyes. This was the moment she had dreamed of. Her first real step toward that dream. All her doubts and fears melted away, replaced by happiness and pride. She sat on her bed, closed her eyes, and smiled. This was her moment, and she knew she could now keep moving forward, unstoppably. The next day, Emma sat at her desk, her hand trembling as she signed the contract with the charitable organization. This was a pivotal moment in her life, the moment she realized her dream of helping other teenagers was becoming a reality. This was her chance, the one she had dreamed of during long nights staring at the stars through the window. Now she wasn't just a girl from a poor family, she was part of something bigger. But the moment she signed the papers, anxiety flooded back in. Emma tried to hide her doubts, but they still haunted her. The fear whispered, "What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" She remembered Keanu Reeves' words, "You can do more than you think." But now she faced a real challenge. Her project had to succeed, and that meant she had a lot to learn. It wasn't easy, and she could feel the pressure mounting every day. Emma sighed, looking at her notes and future plans. A growing uncertainty threatened to overshadow all her efforts. But she couldn't give up. She couldn't have wasted Keanu's time if she was willing to give up this easily. A few days later, Emma started working on the first event she planned to host for her charity. It was a meetup for teenagers, aimed at showing them opportunities that could change their futures. Everything had to be perfect, and although she had prepared for this for a long time, she couldn't shake the fear. When the day of the event finally came, she entered the hall full of people. A few teens, their parents, and volunteers sat around tables, and Emma felt her heart start pounding again. The fear of failure, the doubts she had tried to suppress, they were back. She didn't know what to say or how to begin. There were so many people. What if her words didn't land? She approached the microphone and opened her mouth, but the words stuck in her throat. The audience waited, and Emma stood there, frozen. She remembered every nervous presentation in school, every time she had feared being on stage. But now this was different. This was her mission, her chance. Keanu, who had been invited as a guest, noticed her hesitation. He came to her backstage and said quietly, "Don't be afraid, Emma. You've already proven you can do this. Remember, you're not here to be perfect. You're here to be real." His words gave her strength. She took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage again. With each word she spoke, her voice grew more confident. The fear started to fade. She spoke about her journey, about the importance of never giving up, about how each person there deserved something better. And with every word, the room grew quieter. This was her moment, her time. After the event ended successfully, Emma felt relieved. She had managed to inspire at least a few people, and her project had become real. But soon she faced a serious challenge. An article appeared in a local newspaper, casting doubt on her abilities. Someone, perhaps a rival or just a skeptic, had written a piece claiming Emma was too young to handle such a serious project, that she lacked the experience to lead a charitable organization. The article contradicted everything Emma had worked so hard to build. She felt her heart sink. All the confidence she had gained at the event vanished. The article's words echoed in her mind. "You're too young to understand how things work. Your efforts won't lead anywhere. You can't handle this." She sat at the table, flipping through the newspaper, tears filling her eyes. The words felt like a blow. She could feel her dreams starting to crumble, all her struggle, all her hope. It suddenly felt meaningless if even those she trusted thought she wasn't good enough. Emma spent the entire evening shaken by the article. She couldn't shake the feeling that she would fail, that her project was doomed. But no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, Keanu's words still echoed in her head. "You can do more." The next morning, as she sat by the window, trying to figure out what to do, an unexpected call came. It was Keanu. "How are you?" he asked gently. I don't know," Emma replied, her voice breaking. "I worked so hard, and now this article, it broke me." Keanu was silent for a few moments, then said, "Emma, remember, no one can know what you're capable of unless you show them. You can't let those words stop you. You're stronger than this." Emma felt something stir inside her. Those words were the push she had needed for so long. She realized she couldn't let fear and doubt defeat her dreams. "You're right," she said, breathing deeply. "I'll keep going. I'll fight." Months passed since the day Emma decided not to give up. Her project continued to grow in popularity, and despite every obstacle, she kept going. But more importantly, her family began to feel the results of her work. Emma's father, who had been unemployed for a long time, finally received a job offer from one of the partners of her charity. It was a job that helped him recover from his hardships and brought stability to their home. Emma's mother also began volunteering at events, finding new purpose in her life. Emma watched all this with pride. She knew her decision had not only changed her life, but had given her family a chance at a better future. All the sleepless nights, all the moments of doubt, they were worth it. When Emma thought about Keanu, she realized that his words and his support had been the turning point that changed her life. He hadn't just given her an opportunity, he gave her belief in herself. His confidence in her had awakened a power within her. Despite her age and all the doubts she had faced, Emma had learned not to fear risk, but to believe in herself. Keanu had been more than a mentor. He had shown her that even in the hardest moments, it's important to keep going and never give up. You can do more than you think. His words became her motto, and each day she believed in them more and more. Emma sat at her desk looking at her notes. She couldn't believe everything she had dreamed of had become real. Her project was successful, she had helped her family, and her life had begun to stabilize. Everything she had once only hoped for was now within reach, but in that moment, she understood. Her journey didn't end here. She had achieved a lot, but for her it was only the beginning. Everything she had done was just a starting point. She felt she had the strength and desire to go further, to develop new ideas, to help even more people. Emma stood up and walked to the window. The world outside seemed so vast, and her life so full and vivid. She knew that every step she took now mattered. And though the road was long and difficult, she was no longer afraid. She knew that now she had everything she needed to keep moving forward. With this confidence in herself, with her family's support, and with the strength she had gained from Keanu, Emma was ready to continue her journey. This was a defining moment for her. She realized that it didn't matter how old she was. What mattered was who she was inside and what she could do if she believed in herself.